Welcome to another episode of the Whiskey House Pub House, where apparently we don't know the difference between USE and US and what words and how those are different. Let's get into it. So welcome to another episode of the Whiskey House Pub House. Today is going to be a little bit different. Not really going to have a subject matter, more so just a news kind of filled episode. We're missing Zach and Carter, but on the show today, we invited someone who's been on the episode before. I think you were on the Texas Whiskey Extravaganza episode.
I know I was at least on two of them. So.
Yeah? Well, introduce yourself.
Well, my name's Bryan. I'm the old man of the group. And I'm privileged to sit with Dylan here and discuss some. Well, it started out that I texted him some interesting articles on whiskey.
Yeah, you seem like you have thoughts on some of our other episodes. You think they should be more newsy, perhaps,
yeah.
and less time.
Would I be your one listener that you guys send the podcast out to? And because I always send commentary back to, how great India is, how great Amara is, and you guys need to pick up your game.
Yeah. It's hard to do it when you have to pick up after Carter and Zach.
Well, Carter.
It's a lot of lifting.
Okay, let me give some counsel on Carter, too. He's got to improve his jokes.
He's got to improve. Okay.
And I'm really tempted to try to eat this microphone because the last episode I heard, he was so excited to have this new microphone. And
right.
I'm trying to be professional the way I speak into it. No, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk. It's kind of fun. It's a little scary because I'm not really the biggest. I love whiskey, but I'm not to the point where you guys are. Your noses and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice to not have that pressure on me right now.
Well, because you sent all those links to me. I'm like, well, I guess we're going to have to do an episode today.
Yeah, it's technology.
And you were hesitant at first because you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm worthy of my palate and nose.
What's intimidating? Compete. I'm talking to a guy in New Zealand, and I don't want to ruin for this podcast for him. It's your worldwide, right?
Yeah, we are actually. There's 1% of listeners or something. We have 25 followers on Spotify or something, according to the analytics.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Which apparently you need 100, and then you can start monetizing. So
somehow we got to increase the international flavor.
Yeah, but I don't. There has been discussions about that. I'm like, I don't know if I want to be. I don't want to be in charge of the tax reports and just that stuff. I told Zach, I'm like, Zach, if you want to be the one that is spearheading this and managing that, that's fine. I'll just edit the videos and handle that side of things.
And then there's the fear of getting too big. And then next thing you know, you get Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon calling you up. And
right.
You got to go on and explain to them what the differences are between whiskeys and stuff.
Yeah. I think that's a little far off.
Oh,
but,
okay.
It's
always a fear, though.
You're stressing me out on this. The possibility and the weight of fame.
That's probably what stops everybody from doing anything.
I'm sure.
They could be successful, but then they look at if they get too successful.
I don't want to do the taxes off of the revenue that I might be generating on this.
I don't want to get in trouble with the government.
It's hard. It's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then you got to edit it more and all that stuff. So we were talking about that a little bit before.
Well, I kind of made a breakthrough on that. I figured out a way that I'm like, I am making more work for myself.
Streamlining it?
Yes, I've been able to do that recently. So I'm like, oh, thank goodness. But it was funny that the one that the noob episode, I called it Whiskey Noob.
Yeah. Which I haven't listened to it yet, so I apologize.
Good. No, it's fine. It's just normal, average episode. But so I think somebody that knows Amara commented, they sent me a direct message. Like, hey, not to be one of those people, but like there's a spelling error in the description. I'm like, crap.
Oh, that's what okay.
So that ties into the intro.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Now I understand.
And I'm like going through it. I'm like, okay. Oh, I see it.
And you can't go back, right?
No, I changed it.
Oh, you
I did
did?
change it.
Oh, okay.
And then it was I think it was supposed to be us, but it was yous or something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just adding letters.
Sorry, my watch just
Oh,
buzzed
it's fine.
against.
I didn't hear it.
That's funny. Okay, good.
But so thank you for that person that pointed out. I think I'm gonna blame Zach and myself on that because I think I had Zach check that,
Yeah.
so he didn't catch it. But
Small things. But you guys were probably how many glasses into whiskey?
oh, that would be an interesting statistic.
And you were ready to go, and so unless busy.
How many ounces have we drank on the podcast? That would be actually an interesting per.
You just don't make any decisions after you do a podcast. You
Right.
gotta make them before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, decisions. We've had, I think we finally got to the point where it's easy enough to stick to. The hardest part right now is, it was definitely editing, but I think now it's just nailing down enough or getting the schedules to line up between Zach, Carter, and I to actually sit down and record enough episodes to have a little bit of a buffer
Right.
between.
Oh yeah. You mean like some in the, what do they call that? Some in the can.
Backlog.
No, they got it in the can.
Oh, yeah.
You got a couple in the can, so you can just pull them out.
Okay, and I just posted today. I mean, it was auto-published, but it was the Jack Daniel's 10-year that just got uploaded. It was a short review. It's like 6 minutes. I'm going to try to do more of those.
Did you just say episode 4?
So it's the 4th review episode.
Oh, that's what. Okay, so I was confused because I thought maybe you were going to throwback and throwing a.
Yeah. So with the
okay.
main episodes, the main podcast episodes are probably going to be either they're going to have. I mean, obviously they're going to have whiskey on it because it's a whiskey podcast. But there's so many bottles to review.
Oh,
that it's, if you go back to the first ones, when we sounded terrible, it was even more chaotic what we were doing.
You're saying there was an improvement on the way you sounded?
There has been a steady improvement, I feel like.
Okay, and then sounding or like intelligent sounding?
Yes.
Both? Okay.
Yeah, definitely both.
Okay.
Both. Like before, it was like the Bourbon Trials, I think it's like the second episode.
Yeah.
And then part 3 or 4, whatever.
Yeah.
Those were definitely chaotic. But I think they served a purpose for Zach and Carter.
Yeah.
I don't think they were good episodes.
Okay.
But it was kind of like a crash course, I think, for information.
Well, it's, doing this podcast is just a way to educate yourself. So, I mean, you're expanding your taste, you're expanding your knowledge. And even though it may sound not correct, eventually you guys are really getting the groove. So, and it is fun to kind of listen to you guys, and I'm seeing all your little, I can see little aspects of all of you guys kind of coming out. Zach fills this role. Carter,
right.
I'm not quite sure what Carter fills.
Carter's the funny,
and then he brings.
What he fills the silence. That's all he does is fill the silence.
Except I can't fill in for any like Pokemon stories or whatever the other good stories you guys bring up. But I do have fun with it, and it's always good to have feedback from your listeners too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's how I talk to Dylan through his Instagram account. I always give him messages: what was good, what was bad, what he shouldn't have discussed on the tea episode with Indy.
I like tea episodes. Tea's good.
That was good, and that was kind of neat because it's all the same line. I mean, you can do it with your coffee,
right? You
can do it with tea, and I love tea. And some of the problems I have is tea is expensive. Some teas,
oh yeah,
they can get quite expensive. But after I listened to that, I felt like, wow. I went out and bought tea actually because you guys made me thirsty for it.
Podcast influencing people's spending.
Well, if anybody knows me, I started drinking what's the Irish
poutine?
No, there's the Irish whiskey. Bushmills.
Yeah.
I started drinking that because I kept reading about this guy. He was a spy or something else. And after he was done with whatever event he had, he always go to the bar and have a Bushmills. So I kept seeing Bushmills. So the next thing you know, I'm going to the store and say, hey, can I have a Bushmills? And of course, there's Bushmills Black
Yeah,
and
which kind?
regular and all the other stuff. And then I started drinking and I realized I'm not really big on Bushmills. Oh, pardon that. Bushmills isn't that, but so now I got a bottle of Bushmills. But I'm very influential. So yeah, if you start just talking about some kind of product on your podcast, I'm more likely to buy it. So you need a sponsor.
Yeah. Blue Apron. We were just making up ones. We have been told to make up our own commercials, which we have.
Point. I'm trying to think of something that you guys could.
Dollar Shave Club. There's a lot of these. A lot of them.
What's the teaching one? Master.
Master class?
Yeah,
master class.
You guys could do your own master class.
Oh, I'm sure that would be great.
Have 3 guys come over to your house and tell you what's good.
Well, it's a lot of storytelling. Yeah. But, yeah. Speaking of stories, I've heard some sort of story behind an Abalur 16.
Oh. That was a good transition.
Oh,
that was awesome.
It only took me 2 times.
But see, that's the
Words
podcast.
Are hard.
You always got to figure out the transition and how to get the lead into the next story.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So I asked Dylan if I could share my story and how I got this Arbor Lore. So I got an Arbor Lore. It's a Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey, and it's a 16-year-old. And I like it, but my memory of the first bottle I had, I like that one better.
So this is the second bottle of 16 you've
had?
Have you ever had the 12?
Yeah, usually by 12, and then they have another one.
Like a cast strength.
Well, I can't. It's the fun. Yeah, there
Abalur,
you go.
Abanad.
Yeah, there you
something
go.
Like that.
And I like that one too.
Yeah.
But I had fond memories of 16. But the only thing is this one says double cask matured, so I don't know. I don't remember the other one, my other 16, being that way.
It was probably similar.
It must be. And it's good, and I like it. But it's the price point on it's like, I think it was $120, $130.
Yeah.
And that's really expensive. And I'm finding like I can't afford, like my other go-to bottle is Glenlivet 18. I absolutely love it. But I was buying it $90 and now that's up to $120, $132. So I'm very 1 ounce, half a teaspoon tasting and then, I got a little measuring spoon there and everything else. So, but anyways, so this Arbor Lore, really expensive. And I'm like, sometimes the only time I'll buy expensive stuff is like if I get a year-end bonus or something like that. Unexpected cash. So I don't, the thing's budgeted out for it. So I was coming home from work. I had to go to the dentist for an appointment, but I thought I'm going to change out of my work clothes and change, and then we'll go to the dentist. And I came down my road, and I live on one of the last dirt roads in the area. And as I was driving down the road, I saw a pile of stuff, like what would come out of a horse after they're done eating. I don't know. How do I politely put that? Is that the right way?
Crap.
Okay, sure. Okay. It's your show.
Feces.
The little brown things.
Excrement.
And I thought,
manure.
It's on my road. And I'm like, that's unusual. So I live in an area where there's a horse ranch right next to me. And then in the front of my house, I got two hay fields. So it's like 9 acres of horse pastures and hay fields. So there's horses here. So it's like every once in a while we've had it. There's a little horse that would break through and get out and pooping all over my yard, but he'd go back in. He'd be able to smuggle himself back in. But anyways, so I saw that pile. I'm like, uh-oh. And then I saw another pile right in front of her house. I'm like, uh-oh. So I looked up, and they have a gate. Now, it's not a traditional steel metal gate.
Right.
It's just wire and ribbons. The top one, it's these wide ribbons, and the top one's supposed to be electrified, but they've been having shorts, and they can't find it. That's long.
Miles and miles.
Yeah, the find. So they just haven't tracked it down. Well, they busted through that. So one of the horses, and they just snapped everything. So it was like, there's probably like 4 either ribbons or barbed wire there, and they just busted through. and so I'm looking around for them. I'm like, oh no, because they could have gone down the road and then gone right out into the neighborhood. And I'm like, oh my word. But fortunately, the gate that's a little bit down the road where I'm pointing at, podcasters can't see it, but I'm pointing to Dylan. That gate over there.
Yep.
That happened to be open, and they happened to go into the hayfield. So I looked in front of my house, and there they were. They're just grazing in the middle of the hayfield. But I can't close the gate over where they entered because that was all taken apart.
Right.
So I'm like, oh my word, what am I going to do? So I text my wife, and I says, hey, you better get a hold of the person next to her. I can't remember her name. I don't.
We'll call her Diane.
Yeah, we know her, and she comes up and talks to us. She's super nice. And so I said, you better text her. Her horse is out. And she's like, okay. And I said, well, actually, you should probably call her because it's an emergency.
It's urgent.
Yeah. I don't know where. Ended up, the person was at St. Cloud that day, and she was on her way down from St. Cloud. So she was nowhere near the area.
Oh, Diane.
And so I'm like, okay, so what do I do with these 4 large horses? And they're large. Once you get up to them, they're quite the
Did you break
formidable
them?
beast. Oh yeah,
You broke them.
okay. Well, so how do you go about wrangling horses? I don't know. I'm like, there's another gate to go into the pastures, and I'm like, okay, if I can convince them to go in that way, because I didn't want to push them towards the gate they came into, because then they'll go to the neighborhood,
right.
And then the cops will get involved and everything.
End up being made and turned into glue.
Yeah, I'm like, or we'll never find them again.
Or Jello.
You know, the mountain lion that's down at the river will eat them, or I don't know. Anyways, so I opened the gate up, and I'm like, okay, how can I do this? I know, I tried whistling, and I tried that. I tried barking like a dog. And then, so I walked towards them, and I'm like, okay, maybe I can walk around the backside of them, and then kind of like, encourage them to go in,
Sure.
Come on.
But not getting too close. You don't want to get kicked.
So, but I found as I started walking towards them, I think they were more afraid of me. So they kind of started going to the left of me.
Oh.
I'm like, oh, this is perfect. So I just kept going to the right, and then they kind of ended up going around me. And then I got, let me see if I can remember right now. I'm losing the memory of it. But I got 2 of them to come into the pasture. So I'm like, okay. And so I started walking in with them. And then I started walking down to their barn. So I was like pretending that, hey, they're going to get fed, because they always come, and they know when the people come, they're going to get their hay and their food and everything. Sorry, that's the Red Bull burps coming up here. Anyways, so I started leading them off, and I got 2 of them to follow me. So they all took off and ran down the hill, but there's 2 left. And the 2 looked at me and said, no, you're lying to us. So they started turning around, and they started going back into the hayfield. I'm like, oh, no. So then I'm like, okay. So I go up to them again, and I had to go up to this one horse, and it's the biggest horse, but it's a gorgeous horse. It's just very pretty. And then I finally basically talked them into coming. And then as soon as I got around them, I think maybe my presence there was stopping them. So anyways, I got behind them again, and then they started coming back into the pasture, and then I started and then I said, well, I'm just going to walk down to the barn, and hopefully they'll follow me. So I'm like, come on. And so I'm walking down there. And then finally the other
food.
finally the other 2 are like, oh, okay, maybe he is really serious.
He's going to feed us. Yeah.
So then they took off, and as soon as they bolted past me, and when they're running at full speed and this big horse is coming at you, and you're like, ah, and then as soon as they went past me, I ran back to the gate, hooked the gate back up, closed everything up, called Nikki and said, go ahead and tell Diane that your horses are all taken care of. So they were so grateful. It was her and this other person that's boarding a horse there.
Okay.
They were so nice, and they were so thankful that I was able to wrangle up some horses that they gave me a Total Wine gift certificate.
Nice.
And so that significantly decreased the price point of this Arbor Lore. And I had been waiting for another. I was going to buy another one. I was going to buy Ocean's
Jefferson's
cast strength.
What happened to that Jefferson's?
But that hasn't come out. The cast strength hasn't come out. Oh, what happened to it? Well, let me see. My wife may have drinked it using a mixer. Yeah, a really nice bottle, and it was really tasty, and it was really good. And then she finished it up and she says, well, I sunk that ship. And I says, what? She says, I sunk the ship in the Jefferson Ocean. And I looked at her. I'm like, what? And she's been using it with ginger beer and whatever mixer she uses for whiskey. And I'm like, you were using my cask strength for your mixed
Jefferson's
drinks.
Ocean, yeah.
And then they don't sell it anymore. I mean,
No.
it's not out there right now. So I don't know. You know, that's the other thing too with whiskey. It's like, I don't know what's available. I don't know when it's coming out, or is that the only time? So like even this Arbor 16, I haven't seen this in a long time, and now it just came into Total Wine. So that's why I'm like, well, I'll get it because I really liked it.
I have been looking for Oceans for you in the cast strength.
Yeah.
But the good news is I've heard.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in the state, but I've seen and heard that there's a few single barrel selects of the Jefferson's Ocean cast strengths.
Oh, okay.
That are recent. So I'm not sure if they're going to be more common.
Well, so see, here's my fear again, and this is where whiskey kind of it doesn't fail me. But so there's a new restaurant in Eden Prairie. It's called Brick and Bourbon,
Right.
and it's over by the bus depot. If anybody knows where that's at. Really good food, and they had a Jefferson Ocean cast strength. So I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I'm gonna have it. And then when I drank it,
Wasn't the same.
yeah, and you know, whiskey tastes different from day to day.
Right.
Whatever you're eating, you know, and I know that, but there'll be one time I'm disappointed in this whiskey, but the next day I'm like, oh, this is really good. I forgot how good this is, you know. So, you know, so after I drank it, I'm like, well, maybe I'm like exaggerating the love for this product, or I'm just kind of like, it's a cool story.
Right.
You know, it's fine. I'm not mad at my wife. She's a very pleasant person. I love her. So
I'm mad. She was using my Angel's Envy rum for cocktails too.
Yeah, that's the thing is you got to separate the bottles in our liquor cabinet. Yeah. It's like, well, these are the mixers.
These are the mixers. These ones are
these are the whiskeys I don't like, so I exclusively have them for mixers. You know, you put your sour in them or your ginger.
That's actually been one of the biggest problems that I've had is like I don't like the bottles that you get and you're like, man, this just doesn't taste quite as good as I want it to be. Mm-hmm. It's like, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it's a full bottle, but it's just like, do I take the time and waste? Because that's how I think about it, is like, you can only drink so much.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So it's like, do I waste it on using that up in like a Coke or a cocktail?
Yeah.
Or do I want to sip my, not necessarily like expensive or hard to find, but just ones that are like Woodford Double Oak or whatever. It's like, would I rather sip that, or do I want to try to get rid of this lesser whiskey? It's like, so why am I taking the time to do that?
So you're saying you got the choice you make
it's a hard choice,
life or death. And
yeah, it could.
No, that's exactly, because it's like I know whiskey. That's how my whiskey drinking started, is whiskey sours.
Yeah,
you know, I never.
Let's try some of this Aberlour. We'll keep talking.
Oh, okay. Sorry, here, I'll give it to you.
We're 23 minutes in, and we got.
Oh, we haven't even
talked
whiskey. And we haven't talked about the news articles. Okay, maybe this. And that was my other suggestion. We got to keep these podcasts under an hour, but
and now you understand.
But this is my podcast, so we can break that rule.
Oh, okay.
So this is different.
All right, we'll do a cork pop on the Aberlour 16.
Ooh, that was splashy too. What was I talking about before you rudely interrupted me? Oh, my drinking career.
Your podcast.
My drinking career. I didn't start drinking till later in life. My first drink that I always joke with everybody was a strawberry daiquiri frozen at Chili's. When I was like 24 or 23. I just really didn't like it. My parents had a bar. I grew up in Wisconsin, so it was mandatory to have a bar in your basement. But they never really drank a whole lot. They weren't really social drinkers or anything like that. So, but then my whiskey drinking started when I had whiskey sours.
Okay.
And then that introduced me to whiskey. And I like Maker's Mark. That's the one a classic Maker's
one. Yeah.
Sour.
Yeah.
And so then that's when I really fell in love with it. It probably maybe, I don't know when I started drinking. Oh, you know, that's when I started drinking it straight, is when I went to go on a junket with my work. We go We would go to seminars and training sessions.
Yep.
And then we go to like a Manny's Steakhouse, a Morton's Steakhouse. That's a national one. And then they'd always go there, and the people would always order Johnny Walker Blue. Because so that became the white whale for me. That became
right.
that was, that's really good. You come back years later, I finally been able to afford that, and I got it, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't really that good.
My memory is better than what this tastes like.
It was more the chase for it, the reward of after working and all that other stuff. So, it's funny how the things change. But anyways,
well, this smells really good.
Do you like it? See, and I like sweeter ones. I like more honey in mine. I do like the Highland one. Is it the Highland ones? The space sides?
I love the sherry casks.
That one too.
And Avalor is, I think, one that's very. I mean, most of them are sherry finished. I don't know if I've actually ever seen one that isn't finished in some sort of wine cask.
See, and that's the other thing too. I told you about that. I read an article on Trader Joe's having a Highland.
Probably I think we
in the comments the guy that talked about it, he says that was a lot of. He says it was almost. I think he maybe thought it was too much sherry in it, but he thought it was actually better than some of the other whiskey products.
That seems like it happens a lot because it's weird because there's a lot of people that they're not super peat fans, but
see, this tastes better today.
Oh yeah, no, how does it here?
Sorry, everybody. This is really.
Yeah, it's a sherry bomb. I love sherry bomb.
This is really good, but maybe that's because you got to drink this
with
yellow edition Red Bull with it.
Yeah, probably.
Man, this is really good now. I'm excited now. But when I first got it, I was so disappointed. I wasn't so disappointed. I just was like, this is not the memory I remember. But now this is tasting really good. And I don't like adding water to my whiskey because it just becomes more unpredictable to me.
Right.
Because it's then you got to do it every time. And then
you don't have to do it every time.
I know. But if you want the consistent, you go to any McDonald's, you get that same burger at any McDonald's, right? So that's what I want is kind of a consistency of the flavor with, and it's always going to be different. And it's always,
well, these ones are actually batched because I don't think the other ones are like the 12s. The 12s I don't think are batched. So,
what does that mean?
I'm wondering if they just batch them because there might be a little bit of flavor drift from version to version.
Do you taste sour? I taste it good. I taste sweet and sour.
I mean, on the back from
yes, on the
I'm
back.
imagining it's probably the wine.
And I'm liking the finish on it too. Yeah, this is.
It's a classic sherry Scotch. It's really good. Yeah,
I'm liking it.
Thanks for sharing.
I'm glad. When you make a big investment in something and you're probably never going to buy another bottle of this again. That's why I listen to your podcast was I'm trying to find the good price point stuff.
Good price points.
I'm just, I'm hoping the market will implode at some point and all the whiskeys will come down.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are thinking it will happen. There's been some patterns as of late. Actually, it actually ties in nicely with some of our subjects. Is MGP bought Penelope about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks at this point. I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
But so they acquired the Penelope line, which is, for the most part, I think it's all MGP Indiana distillate. That Penelope has done a great job positioning themselves in the finished bourbon area, and the MGP purchased them. I forget what it was, but they received $120 million as the upfront. And then if they meet their financial goals in the next coming years, then they'll get another $120-ish million. And it's only, I think they only just started probably 5 years ago or so from out of New Jersey. And I think it was just two guys. There's no major investors. It's just these two guys that started it, and now they're just super successful.
Wow!
And they're still a part of it. So that's why they got $120 million upfront, and with this this half and the next 3 or 5 years, whatever. If the business continues to grow and what they want to do, they'll receive another massive portion for an incentive.
Has there been? Recently, has there been any failures that you know of, companies or
Oh yeah,
Because it seems like
COVID weaned out a lot of smaller.
Did it?
It really showed who was going to be successful and who was not going to last.
Okay. Because it just seems like it's like if you make a whiskey, they will come. You know what I mean? It's like it feels like it's that mentality, but it's like a market can get so saturated that also, you know, where once there wasn't enough supply, now there's too much supply and not enough customers. I would think that kind of would happen.
So that's some of the patterns that are happening right now is when it seems to be, and obviously I'm a little bit fuzzy on some of the history on when in the 60s, 70s, when stuff started to kind of fall apart for the industry,
right,
as far as whiskey in the United States. But there were acquisitions in the 50s. There was acquisitions by bigger companies that bought up smaller companies. The Pennsylvania Monongahela style rye was a very popular style, and they got acquired by some of these distilleries, and it killed off that style of rye whiskey, and it completely fell apart. And that's where you have brands such as Pikesville was a Pennsylvania rye, and old Overholt Distillery, who is now I think it's owned by Beam now. I might be wrong on that, but those were all Pennsylvania style ryes, and those got acquired and essentially gutted, and then merged into these other distilleries. Those don't exist anymore. Well, now we have Sagamore that is trying to kind of kickstart that genre again.
Yeah.
But the problem is everyone associates rye with this one distinct profile, and it's all MGP.
Yeah.
So MGP has kind of become the style that people associate rye to, where it's one producer. It's not the style.
Yeah.
It's just one place.
Yeah.
And because MGP is so big, it's just they kind of took over that genre. Not solely, but I mean they sold the whiskey to other people, and people are becoming, you know, popularized off of their product, which is not bad. But going back into the patterns that we're seeing today is we're seeing some acquisitions. Penelope, for an example, we saw some of these craft distilleries are getting bought up. Like Westland got bought up by...
Oh, did it?
Yes. They got bought up a couple of years ago.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they were still their own.
Well, so they discontinued their heritage. Well, now it's called the Heritage line, which it originally was their core lineup. Okay. They had the Westland Sherry, the American Oak, and then the Peated. And they got bought up. And subsequently, that line got discontinued and then was referred to as the Heritage line. Okay. At the same time, they had a whiskey come on the market that was just called the American whiskey. And I don't know if they say exactly, but I've had it, and it's definitely the blend of the three. Okay. So they blended it for more product and wider distribution. And they also have now distribution in France. So I forget who their parent company is now, but they got bought up. Balcones got bought up last year.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Oh, yeah. They're a lot of these.
So they're consolidating, but I mean, there's going to be brands that fall to the wayside that, okay, this isn't profitable anymore.
And that's definitely happened.
But then they'll take those barrels that aren't used, and then there'll be the mystery blends and then there'll be the limited series.
They're ghost barrels.
The ghost barrels. That's what it is.
They get acquired, and you don't know where they go or what's happening to them. I don't know of any actual distillery just by name, but there was one in Georgia, I think, that got closed down, and
Georgia,
they go out of business, and then people buy up the equipment and the barrels, and then you never really know what happened to the barrels. Yeah. And that's happened before. But now for the most recent one, like in 92, what is it? Stitzel-Weller Distillery.
Oh yeah.
1992 shut down, and that got bought, and then the barrels kind of went to other places.
But they're back though, aren't they? Isn't that the place in Louisville?
As the distillery, yes. The distillery is back online to an extent. The brand itself is not back.
Okay. See, but that's that, and I guess that's what I mean, because because you see a lot of people trying to open up these old distilleries again that they lost. So there was a point where they were basically all shutting down, or they weren't existing and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then now they're reopening. So I just think maybe in the future we'll go back to like shuttering distilleries again.
Well, and
I don't know.
And it's definitely a possibility, and a lot of people do think that. Because we're on the cusp of some of these distilleries that were being built in 2018, 2019, who are set up for contract distillation. So massive, high volume runs.
Right.
We're not talking like boutique
by
any means. We're talking ones that are the size of MGP, Jim Beam, like these workhorses that are going to make tons and tons of product.
Yeah.
And they're all starting to come online now. Like I can think of the two immediately I'm thinking of is Wilderness Trail and Bardstown Bourbon.
Okay, Bardstown I've heard.
Those two are going to be massive. I mean, there's more, but they're flooding. I mean, that's not flooding sounds like a bad thing.
But they're just trying to...
But the market is becoming... People only associated like mass production with kind of MGP now.
Right.
And it's like any label you didn't recognize, there's a good chance it's an MGP product.
Yeah.
Now we're kind of going to start seeing that, but with product from Wilderness Trail or Bardstown.
Okay.
And it's not like directly from them. It's just being bought by other producers who are doing something hopefully to it and then putting a new label on it. But there's a chance that the market might become saturated.
Yeah.
And it could crash. I mean, we don't have the high age stated product anymore, and a lot of people think that's like the end goal.
Yeah.
Well, it might not be, because if the market continues to be healthy, I mean, what's healthy?
Yeah.
It's products selling, it's sitting on the floor. Yeah, they're going to be aging stuff, but it's not going to be, you're not going to be finding Pappy Van Winkle 23 year for $100. Because that was a sign of they just wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, not exactly that example, but you're not going to find hyper age stated stuff for $50.
But that's the love of whiskey. It's different barrels, different eras, different woods, different processes. So,
right.
I mean, it's all changing and everything. Well, that's one of the links I sent you was a local place, Tattersall Distilling. They're more known for the mixes and
they've had
vodkas,
really good,
and other things like their clear liquids.
Well, have you had their old fashioned
I don't know,
their premix cocktail?
I'll just tell you,
they're really good.
Eat before you go, or eat when you're there, because it is fun to sit at their bar and just to watch the people. They're so highly trained, and it's fun just to watch them make the drinks, and it's incredible. And I probably did, but that's the problem, that we were having so much fun and we started drinking too much that when we stood up, we realized, we need some food. So fortunately, it was a food truck outside, and we had that. But when I say Tattersall, that's why. But they're starting. Have they made their own whiskey before? Or are they starting to?
No, they've definitely released their own whiskey. They've been doing that for a while now.
But that's what I mean. It seems like everybody in there is like, we got to release a whiskey, even though they're doing clear liquors and stuff.
Well, it's tough because
there's some local here that I do not like.
No, there are.
And I don't want to name them because they're
right.
They're not. I don't know. They're just, maybe somebody else would like them, but I'm just like, wow, do they know what they're producing?
Well, and there's one I could think of. I won't name them, but I'll give an example. It's like the one that I think you and I are probably both thinking of the same one. But you go in their barrel room and it's covered in wood paneling, and it's just like, oh man, this room has like a nice kind of cedar smell to it.
Yeah.
And then, to everyone that has their own, distinct tasting and what they like and whatever. But it's like, whenever I have theirs, I'm like, this tastes
really
like how that room smells.
That's interesting.
And I'm like, I just can't get past this.
And when I went to Texas and I went to a Treaty Oak, is it Ghost Hill Treaty Oak or whatever.
Yeah.
They have their barrels outside and just exposed to the weather. And
a lot of places do that. Like that's
like,
that's kind of common.
And I love their whiskey. Their whiskey is so good. And it's because I thought, well, that's kind of a crazy way to put your barrels in it. But so yeah, I guess any way you do things like that. Well, because you think about it. So yeah, that was the neat thing. I went on a Kentucky trip last year, and we went to what's the one you wanted me to buy the hat from?
Oh, Wild Turkey.
Yeah, Wild Turkey. To see all their barrel houses, they're huge. They look like Noah's Ark or something. And they're just gigantic, big,
and they're all boxes.
Wood. Yeah, and they showed pictures of them inside. We couldn't go in, but it was just like they were all over the place. It was kind of cool.
Yeah,
and I think that was the only distillery that I got to see that. Well, I think Buffalo Trace had things like that too, but that does make a difference, though. And,
it does.
And then that's the thing. So then you come back to Minnesota. It's like I don't know if they have that kind of storage facility. I don't think we can store our whiskey out in the cold, in the freezing cold.
Well, we can, but the
we can sell it as ice whiskey. Yeah. You got ice wine, you got ice whiskey.
If Nick ever listens to that, he'll get a kick out of the ice wine.
I love ice wine. That's expensive too, though.
So I told Nick to get an ice wine once. Well, I didn't tell him, like, we were in Fargo.
You commanded him?
We were Fargo, and I'm like, yeah, they got ice wine here.
Because that's what you do in Fargo is buy ice wine.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they're known for their ice wine.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like, oh, man, they got ice wine. Because, I had heard about it and kind of like, oh, cool. I've never actually seen it. And I'm like, Nick's like, is it good? And I'm like, I've heard it's pretty good.
And did he like it?
And he got it. And it was a half bottle. So it was like, it was $3.75, and it was expensive. I forget what it was.
Oh, yeah. It was dang.
And he tried it, and he's like, this just tastes like Welch's. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. But it's supposed to be sweet.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the whole, if you don't know what it is, look it up. But I mean,
I had it one time. It was fantastic.
It is very sweet.
But anyways, what were we talking about? Now we're just running up. Now we're wandering off. At least we're not wandering off into Pokemon or movie references or listening to one of Carter's bad jokes. I don't know. At least we're tanging out on the other alcohol. But this article, so anyways, the Tattersall Distilling, they're going to release a whiskey that's new, and it's from a perennial grain called Kernza. Kernza?
I should look at it.
Kernza. And I just thought, wow. So, I mean, everybody's trying to reach out a way to how to be different, how to have a different taste, and how to have a different flavor. And then you always hear about the different woods and the barrels and the different blends, the corn, the rye, the barley, red wheat, blue corn, all this stuff. So it'll be the 100% Kernza whiskey in the country. It'll be the first 100% Kernza whiskey in the country, and they're going to launch that. And of course, there's a issue, so they had to move the distillery over to Wisconsin because Wisconsin's a much better state than Minnesota.
Well, yeah. Well, they were having problems with
production.
City regulation or something.
Well, I think it was Minnesota. The state of Minnesota too, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? I don't know. But it was either Minneapolis or Minnesota. But
making it.
I haven't seen anything that is released from their Wisconsin site. I know they were keeping the bar or the tasting room open, but yeah, they moved production. They did release a single malt, and that still said distilled in Minnesota. So I think we're still probably got a little bit until they release anything from Wisconsin.
Okay. So this says it's a perennial grain. So what does that mean? They can be grown year round?
I don't know. I'm trying to find the translation just to see if it'll read it off.
It says everlasting. So maybe it's more sustainable. So in other words, it's more environmentally friendly. I don't know. I suppose I should have read the article before we get into it. But
right here, let's see what it sounds. What the word is.
Kernza.
Kernza. But it's just funny. So now we got rye, we had barley, we have corn.
So
and now we got Kernza.
Yeah, it says it's known commonly as an intermittent wheatgrass.
Okay. I just wonder what it doesn't.
It's native to Europe and Western Asia.
There we go. Kernza is just the beginning for Tattersalls' search for sustainable sips.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Distillery is also looking at pea protein.
Say what?
Okay, I just drew the line. Pea protein. No, I'm not having a pea protein whiskey. Or maybe they're going to do that in the vodka. I don't know.
But how is Kernza?
I don't know.
What's the sustainability difference between that and?
And the article really doesn't seem like it goes into that. They're just, maybe a little bit. It tells about why it moved to Wisconsin. They worked with the Institute in Kansas and the University of Minnesota Forever Green Initiative to see if there was an interest in working with the perennial. Sustainability is the large part of Tattersalls' approach. So I guess, because I mean, wheat's out there and corn and.
I mean, is it just?
I don't know.
Is it talking about crop rotation? Is somehow like that's different between? But like, why? First of all, I was like, what? I wonder what the impact. Like, does it at least say like what percentage they're using it? Like, is it a bourbon they're using it in, or is it just some weird whiskey?
It just looks like it's at 100% Kernza.
Oh, so it's just gonna be a whiskey.
Yeah. New Tattersall Kernza Perennial Grain Whiskey. Grain whiskey.
Grain whiskey.
Yeah.
So it's distilled at a certain level? I don't know what the
proof is, or...
I mean, I guess grain whiskey is not the same connotation.
Yeah, I don't know.
As it is Scotch grain whiskey.
They'll probably... Well, now... I read it.
It brings more questions
but now I saw it. I got to buy it just to try it. Just
It's probably not going to be that great.
Well, I can't. The further you get away from the traditional way of making whiskey, you could be going down the bad road. But you could be broadening the audience. But it's like it looks like they're just trying to be sustainable. So maybe they're trying to appease to a certain group of people. But
my question is. If you release a news article like that, I would like to at least know why. Like, how is it more sustainable than something? Like, what is the difference that makes it special?
I don't know.
But it is a little bit concerning. They're talking about the sustainability of it and not like the initial flavor, which would be my main concern on a consumable product.
Oh, okay. Here's the paragraph. So, you know what? It helps if you read.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. The concept of the perennial grain itself, if you aren't tearing up the land, you aren't releasing a lot of carbon. If you can avoid that, it's pretty much awesome. In addition, the Kernza taproot is between 8 and 15 feet, so it is drought-resistant grain, which is super important. So I guess, well, maybe that, you get your...
So it's using less water, in theory. So maybe they don't have to, so maybe they don't have to use as much water.
And who knows, maybe it'll fail.
Less maintenance.
Maybe it'll be good. At least they're trying something in there. And with them, I guess I do expect Tattersall to really explore things because that's kind of what they're known for.
Yeah, I mean, of the Minnesota distilleries, there's only a few that kind of stand out in my opinion. I mean, I would put Far North, Tattersall. O'Shaughnessy's definitely big. Like, they're a big enough footprint to stay.
Yeah.
If they're producing enough.
But their building looks magnificent.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Have you been over there?
No.
Oh, we should go over there.
Oh, yeah.
We did it. I've done a tour, I think twice. I took, I forget who we took, but they're set up to be big. I mean, they're as big as some of the Kentucky distilleries. They are
the Keeper's Heart, right? That's the brand. Okay.
They have a column still. They have pot stills for the, a triple distillation style, like Irish. They did think they were the only. They thought they were the first solely pot still bourbon. It was their hope was going to be, but I know
in the United States or Minnesota or
United States, but I know Balcones is
they got
pot
one, don't
still.
they?
Yeah. So they might have meant triple still, but even then, I'm not sure if that is an accurate statement. But I am looking forward to the bourbon. I know they're sourcing some of the bourbon for the Irish. They have an Irish plus bourbon whiskey that I don't know if I've tried. It was decent, but the tasting there, we got to try the rye on its own, the Irish whiskey on its own, and I think they had a grain whiskey, and it was pretty good. I believe the bourbon was a Heaven Hill. I might be wrong on it. I'm probably wrong on it, but so grain of salt.
Well, this podcast's not necessarily known for its accuracy.
But the rye was from an undisclosed.
That's why you get listeners. They tell you when you're wrong.
Yeah. Apparently, I don't have enough to even tell me I'm wrong, other than one person. hey, you know what?
Actually,
hey, we are not too far away from a nice milestone of sorts.
What's that?
What's
that, Dylan?
Let me check now. We're almost at 1,000 listens.
Really?
Yeah.
But that's on Spotify, right?
No, that's total.
Oh, you can you can have downloads.
Yep.
Okay. Because
downloads are different. I don't actually know how to see downloads.
So I listen to your podcast. Let me see. So I use Overcast on my Apple iPhone.
Oh, okay. So
I don't use Spotify.
So for as of May 19th, we have 995 total plays.
That's still pretty good.
Not too bad.
Yeah. And that's all you need. It's not like you're going for...
Well, it's not like I'm doing it for the money.
Yeah. You do it for the love. You're giving a big hug to everybody that loves whiskey.
The big hug.
Here comes Dylan. Arms open wide. Come, let Dylan hug you. Sorry, that was my Carter coming out.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Oh, the other thing I got to do for Carter is I got to eat this microphone because it's so delicious. I just bought it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm laughing at him from the other podcast I heard him from.
So is there anything else on that article we should probably close out on that thing.
Yeah,
we're almost getting too long for some listeners.
Oh, I know. Yeah. And I told him that he needs to cut it down. Now I understand why they keep going and going. The only other one I was going to mention was how wood scanning technology is taking the guesswork out of aging bourbon. And I haven't read it yet. I should have reread it. Maybe
I glanced through it and I didn't. I speed read through it.
Yeah.
My understanding was they're doing that for the French oak staves. We're talking about Penelope. So the people that just got bought up a little bit ago, but their architect line is finished with French oak staves.
Yeah.
And I guess what they're doing here is they developed a way to have a better understanding on what the impact of those French oak staves are going to have, because French oak is spicy compared to the American oak.
Right. And it says here in the article that it can be wildly different.
Right.
Wildly inconsistent, it says.
It sounds like they developed a proprietary process of logging those. And if you grab one of the bottles of the Penelope Architect, on the back it's got one of those, what are those called? It's some sort of graph thing where it's like it can give you more of a detailed idea on what it's going to be like.
Right.
But I tried, Gabrielson's had an Architect, and I tried it, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I did not realize that there were different batches, essentially. Like, I thought it was all shooting for the same profile.
Yeah.
It's not. So I'm going to have to come back and try to find another one.
I just was amazed that we could use technology to actually affect the flavor. I heard this on another podcast I listened to, and they were going off on some other stuff, but it was, I have two thoughts. I think it's good, but then I'm thinking there's just some old guys that are sitting around that, they can tell by the smell and the feel in their hands of what tastes good and what doesn't taste. You know what I mean? It's like they're going like, well, that's not traditional, and that but it's almost like, again, it's like McDonald's. It's like it'd be nice to have a consistent product that that my Arbor Lord, I know I like it. Buy it again, and it tastes the same. And also to get the most flavor out of whatever they're making too.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, I just like the idea of technology. I'm like, man, use computers to make whiskey.
We'll have to talk about rapid aging at some point.
How does that happen? Microwave? Time machine?
Pressure cookers sometimes.
Pressure cookers.
I think sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, are they really?
There's one distillery. I think it used to Green River. I think Terrapure. Have you ever heard of Terrapure?
Dylan, I haven't heard of half the things that have come out of your mouth.
All right. Well, there was a company called Terrapure that was trying to do rapid aging.
Yeah.
And
that doesn't seem like it would work very well.
I'll tell you how bad it was.
Okay.
It was so bad they changed their name and they completely threw out that part.
Yeah.
Now they just do normal aging. I think it's Green River Distillery.
So, again, trying to make an impact, trying to make a different product, and that would have solved a lot of the problems.
Or the OZ Tyler Distillery? OZ Tyler. Oh, I forget exactly.
That would help the supply shortage that a lot of the whiskeys were going through. Quickly age it, but
it's a nice thought.
Yeah.
But there are certain things you need time.
Yeah. There's a reason why I like the 16 year. Because I like the 12, but 16 year still has a vastly different taste and a more sweet to it. And so there's a reason why, the process is what it is. Mm-hmm. If you didn't want any aging, then you go buy some moonshine.
Yep.
It's some White Dog. Buffalo Trace says White Dog.
Have you had it?
No. I bought it for my brother-in-law.
Oh, yeah?
Because he likes it. I just look at them and I'm like, okay, here you go. Not for me.
Well, I think that's going to conclude this episode.
Tell me no.
We'll have another one, but they'll have to wait next week.
But yeah, I'll have to wait another 2 years before I'm invited back on.
2 years.
Do I have to sing something? It seems like you guys always sing a song too.
Do we? We always fit one.
Well, there's always like a little song. Zach breaks out into some kind of melody, and maybe not.
I'm not that good on my feet. But anyways, that's going to do it for this episode.
Sitting on your butt.
Well, hey, maybe I'm standing. They don't know. I could be standing right now.
Okay, I'll let you end this. Sorry, I'm just being the.
That's going to wrap it up on this episode.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
We're done with this.
Thanks for tuning in on this episode of the Whiskey House Pub House, and join us next week.